Yeah, I mean, it. he got a weapon. Like, I mean, being put in that situation, I'd be scared too, right? An unknown. You always know, because I've lived out in the country. Um, you don't know who's coming up your driveway, right? Like, it's not a short driveway, and
Yeah, he
you
got a
hear all
little
this
bit of warning.
noise. You got all this noise coming up, and you're stopped to look. Like, oh, we didn't expect somebody today, right? Like, what's up, right? And then you see these guys come out. One goes to your fucking truck. That's not. Well, it's not yours.
Well,
You're working on somebody.
basically
You know
what
that's not the owner.
Yeah, but I mean, Mr. Stanley stated that it's not uncommon for people to come into his yard because he deals in repairing vehicles. So he didn't think anything of it that this vehicle came up initially. I
No.
mean, he probably thought, wow, they're really coming up the lane. But they attended to another vehicle that was in the yard, and he figured that it was
But
just
he
a
knows
customer.
that's not the. He knows
But
that's not an owner though. When he goes and walks up to this Ford.
Well, no, he knows that later, but the initial thing that alerted him was that the quad started, and he's like, what the fuck? Like, he's with
Well,
his
that's the
son,
thing, right?
and
Like,
his wife is driving around on a riding lawnmower, and it's like, there's nobody else that should be touching that thing in the yard. So they go to
Well, that would
investigate.
scare me too, right? Like,
Yeah.
you come up, you see somebody walk to the truck. Okay, like, you're looking like, oh, okay, that's a guy. Like, what's this guy want? Right? Like, you think it's business.
I honestly, I probably would have been less resistant than him. I hear the quad start up, I'm grabbing a big heavy object, and I'm running at the quad.
Well,
Whoever's on
that's
there
the
is going
next
to get
thing, right? Like,
smashed.
you're focused on this one guy, and then all of a sudden you hear an ATV start. You're like, okay, now you got multiple people on your property. What the fuck's happening, right?
Yeah.
And the son
Well,
goes
and
bolted into the
you
into
add
the house.
into that other people have been like that there have been other reported cases of people.
Well,
I'm not
yeah.
saying exactly where from, but we can kind of guess that were coming onto properties and stealing property, stealing
Yep.
ATVs.
Yep.
So
and that happens, and then like what they throw a hammer at the windshield, crack it, and then there's so many people now involved, right? You hear voices, you're seeing multiple heads, right?
yeah.
One at the truck, one at the ATV, one in the driver's seat, who's in the back, right? Like, you're seeing all these people, and you're like, holy fuck, like, what the fuck's gonna happen, right? So, like, yeah, he goes and gets his gun. Okay.
Well, and then to come back and then fear that there's a possibility that your wife might be pinned underneath a vehicle.
I mean, that's scary. That's scary
you're
coming
not
from his point of view.
So one of the claims was that the bullet that actually killed Colten Boushie was a result of a hang fire. And now the cartridge that has been tied to that bullet had an unusual bulge to it, and both the experts, the firearms experts at both the defense and the Crown called, both said like it is unusual, and that the only thing that they could think of was that it was a result of the gun not being in battery. You know what that means is that the slide was not fully engaged and the round was not fully chambered. So the slide had come back and maybe gotten caught. It's a common thing that can happen. Is that the action doesn't function properly. So he fires a couple of shots and then pulls the trigger multiple more times just to make sure it's empty, not realizing that the slide is actually out of battery. It's slightly locked back, and that during the attempt to get the key out of the ignition, that it may have slid back into battery. The firing pin was already already engaged, so that when the slide went forward, it fired. And that it may have fired before it was fully in battery, which caused that bulge. And I forget where I was going with this now. But
You just keep talking about the fucking gun. I'm trying to sum up everything what's going on.
I know, but the thing that I was going to get at is that in Canada, the information regarding proper firearms handling that they teach you, that's like official documentation on what you're supposed to do in the case of a hang fire, is that you're supposed to wait 30 to 60 seconds before extracting the cartridge, because a hang fire can sometimes go off many seconds later. When you're in that situation and you think your wife is pinned under the fucking car, are you gonna wait
no, I'm not
30
gonna
to 60
wait.
seconds to be like,
No.
I don't know if this is safe yet? No, you're gonna deal with it.
Like, I'm not gonna wait for that. I'm not gonna wait for that. I just want the threat to go. I want it to go away as fast as I can. Like, You live on the farm. The authorities aren't 5 minutes away. The cops aren't coming in 5 minutes away.
It's going to be 45
You don't know how many
more.
people are on your property right now, right? And then when you reach in that vehicle, I know for me, you know, since we've been using guns, I know you use guns. I know I use guns. You know, finger placement. I'm very, very cautious with my finger placement.
Yeah, discipline.
Gerald Stanley admitted, like, he doesn't really have gun safety. It's been a while for him. Yeah. So I could see him with his finger on the trigger, adrenaline pumping. He goes in the vehicle, and then he sees Colten Boushie move. And that would probably scare the shit out of him that he pulled that trigger just, like, as a reaction. Like, he just scared, right?
Not that it was a conscious pull the trigger. It's that it's just a reaction. Hell, the thing could have gotten bumped. There's any number of things that could have caused that to happen.
And that was it. That's my point of view of it. Is that like,
and like it's not like there's no evidence. There's no evidence to suggest that he came up and put the gun to his head, because like
execution style, right?
Yeah,
no witnesses said that.
There would have been burn marks, or there would have been physical evidence to show that. So it wasn't like he walked up and put the gun directly to his head.
No, and I think that was it. I think that just enough jurors can see that, like, the guy does not have intentions to do that. But I mean, you throw in a few indigenous people to get on their side, they could say, well, this is the typical white man wanted to kill an Indian point of view. Which, I mean, there's tons of stories people can make up, right? And that's the one story that we keep hearing, is this guy murdered Colten Boushie. Like, that was his intent. And it's like, well, no. The guy was scared. He's 56 years old, and he had multiple intruders in his property, and he was scared shitless. It just happened. The first thing in his mind was to get a gun, because he knew, like, he had a gun nearby. And the funny thing is, well, I guess it's not a funny thing, but like, to me, he didn't know there was a gun there, but there was a 22.
Yeah.
What if that was fully functional? What if that gun could fire? I mean, it was chambered. There was a round in it. It had a magazine. You know, it could have been ready to go. What if they came in, you know, pulled their guns on the Stanley family and said, "Give me your stuff." Like, what would did he have to get shot at before he was justified of firing back?
But that's the thing, though, is that, like, in those situations, is if somebody pulls a gun and points it at you, you're allowed to use lethal force at that point, because it's to prevent grievous bodily harm or death.
Legally you can, right? Legally you can, but I'm talking about all these fucking people who are saying it was an execution. I know legally you can. I know legally you could do that. You can do that. I'm talking about the point of view, like, so many people are like, this is an execution. But, like, why did Gerald Stanley have to be shot at before he would fire back? Like, would it be more acceptable Canadian society, for him to fire back if he was fired upon? Because, like, how many people have you heard say, well, this is an execution, he murdered this guy? It's like, yeah, but he had a gun. Doesn't matter. Would you shoot somebody that comes on my property? I'm going to start executing people that come on my property. It's like, that's not what happened, though. They came to this property to do something, and it wasn't good. How many people have you gone to their property like, oh, I'm lost, I need assistance? I've done that many times living out in the country. Like, oh, I don't, because it's all road numbers. It's not like 22 fucking Michelle Road. It's fucking a street and a number. And you go to somebody's property and you're like, hey man, I'm looking for so-and-so number. I've never had a gun drawn on me, and I'm a visible minority.
Yeah.
I've never had that. But then again, I'm not trying to break into somebody's car. I'm not jumping on somebody's ATV. I'm not trying to hurt somebody's family member while doing this.
And see, that's the thing that I think the average person needs to understand, is that out in the country, things are different. Cops aren't 5 minutes away. You can't, like, run into your home and barricade and phone the police, and the police are going to get there before the guys manage to get away. That's not how it is. Out in the country, like, it's, and in this case, it's like an hour or more. Because, I mean, even if the RCMP officers aren't tied up with something else, they still have to get from where they are to wherever this is. And when they're patrolling huge swaths of land, it could be 45 minutes.
No.
Like, I remember growing up, going out to the grandparents' farm. They live in the middle of nowhere. Then the closest town is 10 miles away or something like that. And yeah, Grandpa had a rifle over top of the door. And they had the ammunition right there. His old World War II rifle. Like, he's ready to go. And I remember times when, you know, headlights come into the yard in the middle of the night and it's like, okay, who the hell is that? And it's like, yeah, pull the rifle down, not necessarily go out into the yard with it, but, you know, have it ready.
Well,
and this isn't even that long ago. I mean, this is, what, 20 years ago? 15 years ago?